Hello, everyone, and welcome back. It's been a long off season. College football is officially here. Week 0, I guess unofficially here. We have a 5-game slate on DraftKings, so of course that means I'm going to break it down every single relevant player on every team in the slate, all 10 teams. I got you covered. Everything you need to know for this upcoming slate. I'm back on my channel. That's the big news this year. I'm back on my own channel. Plan on breaking down every single main slate every single week. Throw in a couple of action slates, things like that. If we have some good slates some other days, I'll do what I can. But for sure, every single DraftKings main slate. Been doing this for a couple years. If you've been here before, welcome back. If you're new here, thanks for giving us a shot. If you're interested in CFF content, college fantasy football, I got you covered. Props, PrizePicks, everything. Check out devywatch.com. Other than that, this video, I'll break down some things for you as well. All right, first game. UMass, New Mexico State. New Mexico State 7-point favorite. Over-unders at 45. Wow, they really know how to start off with a banger. UMass, New Mexico State. This one is ugly, and there aren't going to be many fantasy plays here. Why would there be? I don't really know. UMass's offense is dreadful. Didn't even average 2 touchdowns last year. 131st in success rate. That's dead last in the country, folks. They returned 7 starters. I'm not really sure what's going on here offensively. Steve Kasula is in year 2 as the offensive coordinator. Offensive line's supposed to be a little better, but man, I'm going to need to see it before I totally believe it. I tell you what. So, not interested here. If you want to go with the quarterback, not going to pronounce that name, but he's been around. He's been around at a few Power 5 programs. He can run a little bit. Allegedly was looking good in the scrimmages. Could he run for a couple touchdowns? Sure, he could. I don't know why you'd be paying for any of these guys. Pope should be their wide receiver 1, I would guess. He's a former top 100 recruit. Actually, does have some talent. So that could happen if you're going to look there. Again, I don't see why you're playing UMass whatsoever unless you want some crazy leverage. So maybe Pope would be your guy there. Other than that, at the running backs, you're not playing them. Lynch Adams, you're not playing them. 131st in success rate last year. The O-line couldn't block. They were 130th in second-level yards. That's not a good indicator of success from the running backs. New Mexico State was actually pretty solid last year under Jerry Kill, their first year. Supposed to be about the same this year, maybe take a step forward. He is the program rebuilder, right? That's what he's known for. That defense was good, man. 12th in explosiveness. They did not allow explosive plays. If you're thinking they go out there, UMass does, and the quarterback makes some explosive plays, I don't see it happening. I don't. They do only return 4 starters on defense. The Aggies do. But I think they should have some similar numbers this year. Allowed less than 24 points per game last year. That's very solid. Got decently more athletic. They hit the transfer portal this offseason. The D-line's still going to be a strength, man. They returned 7 guys with starting experience. I think they could eat UMass up pretty good. I see some big-time improvement here. They added 3 transfers in the secondary. I think they're probably gonna shut it down pretty good here. 10 with starting experience in the secondary, so that's pretty good. I like Mexico State here. I like a -7. I hear UMass supposed to be improved, but Mexico State's on a clear upward trajectory, in my opinion. All right, flip side of things, New Mexico State. It all starts with the quarterback, Diego Pavia. This guy's awesome. He's a runner. First and foremost, he's a runner. He has a safe floor, right? 20 fantasy points in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of his last 6 games. He's got a decent floor in cash games, right? Obviously, everyone's going to pay up for Caleb Williams. The secondary quarterback spot's going to be an area that you can look at. I think Pavia is totally viable in all formats. He has the ceiling as well because he's a rushing quarterback. Rushing, if you're new to college fantasy football, play the rushing quarterbacks for Christ's sakes. Just play them. Don't overthink them. The passing attack probably won't be very good again. They run the ball a lot. We're 24th in rushing success rate last year and also 24th in rushing explosiveness. A lot of those explosives came from Pavia. So, I don't know. It's not like they have an explosive offense, but they were decent, and they returned 9 starters. UMass was pretty decent defensively last year. They made a lot of improvement under Don Brown, and he is a defensive coach. So I don't think UMass's defense sucks. I hear some people talking on Twitter this week about UMass's defense and that they're just going to get rolled by Pavia. I don't necessarily believe that, but I still think they could have a good game. Now, UMass's defense, I think the D-line should be probably the strength of the team. The linebackers are okay, but the defensive backs is where this team was amazing last year, 29th in passing success rate. They lost a lot of those contributors, and they were dead last in the country anyway last year in passing explosiveness. They allowed some big explosive plays. Pavia is an explosive player. I could see him hitting some. Personally, I don't think you're playing any of these wide receivers except for tournaments only. The guy I would look at is Cordell David. Personally, I just think he's their best receiver. I think he's the most consistent, and if they hit an explosive, he would probably be my guess. I wouldn't take a shot on these other guys. Chris Bellamy's listed as a starter, but really hasn't done much. So personally, I think you're getting a little crazy if you're looking at the tight ends and stuff. I mean, I get they're cheap, and I get they supposedly had a good spring, but I don't really see it for me. I think Pavia is where you're going to look at. And then the running backs, they rotate these guys in and out. Star Thomas, Jones, and Watkins. I actually think Watkins is a pretty explosive rusher, but he's listed third on the depth chart. Doesn't really get many chances. I could see him popping off a big one if you really want to punt down. I guess just playing all the way down at Watkins is the look since he's the cheapest. All right, let's get things moving here. Ohio, San Diego State. This is actually a really good game. This is the game of the weekend. Two of the better group of 5 teams. Ohio only had 1 loss in conference last year. Could have won the MAC potentially. Their quarterback Nathan Rourke was the player of the year, and he tore his ACL in November. But he's supposedly 100% in fall camp. He's clear as the starter. I guess we have no concerns for him here, but you're always going to have concerns. He tore his ACL 9 months ago. We haven't seen him in action, and this is a really tough matchup, man. Out of the gates, I know it's not a Power 5 team or anything, but they were held in San Diego State, but Ohio was held to exactly 10 points in their 2 non-conference games against good defenses last year, Penn State and Iowa State. And I know the first thought in everyone's mind is, well, those defenses are better than San Diego State's. This year, I agree, but last year, man, San Diego State's defense was nasty, man. They were nasty. They were 6th in EPA per play, 7th in success rate. I don't know. Where does that leave us this year? I think it's hard to have confidence. I actually played the under in this game. It's at 49. I think they're both ball control teams, and then you have the clock changes. Both teams averaged over 31 minutes and times of possession last year. Wrote this game up for covers. Go ahead and check it out. I ended up on the under. I just see both teams kind of trying to play their style, ball control. Ohio's listed at +3 right now. That one's been all over the place. Across the key number of 3 was at +2 earlier. I think that's probably due to the news that Rourke is allegedly playing at 100%. Well, he is playing, but allegedly at 100%. And that makes a lot of sense to me, man. Ohio's good. I love Ohio. They got a lot of key pieces. 1,000-yard back return, Cy Bangura. Stud receivers return. Offensive line, they have 4. They have 4 seniors and a junior, all upperclassmen, all 5 upperclassmen. They're big. They average 315 pounds up front. This team's no scrub, man. They're no joke. And Rourke is really good. He's really talented. The throws this guy's making, he's probably going to make a couple in this game. You're like, damn. All right, so the news here is that Rourke is completely mispriced. It's a complete joke. He's listed at 5.5K. He should be the second most expensive quarterback on the slate. He should be 8.5K. Probably if I'm making prices, you put him about where AJ Swan's at for Vanderbilt, right? For reference, I know a lot of people don't play redraft league, so they just don't know the pricing. They don't know how mispriced it is. This guy is a 6th, 7th, 8th round pick in redraft, going off as most people's QB2 or whatnot. And if you wait in the QB1 range, he's an elite fantasy asset, and he's priced like he's a 3rd string scrub for nobody. So he's going to be extremely popular in tournaments. If you want to fade him, that's okay. My biggest thing in college fantasy football, I'm not scared of chalk, because you can find 1 or 2 places where you're going to get a little bit different. Is easiest for me. I do think there are some solid quarterback options, like I just mentioned, Pavia. You can play Pavia and Caleb Williams and not play Rourke. I do think this is a tough matchup, like I said. On the other hand, San Diego State's defense, I don't think they're going to be as good as they were last year, man. I do not think they're going to be as good as they were last year. They returned 6 starters, but the defensive line, which was the strength of the defense last year, they lose a lot of people, man. They lose Cam Thomas. They lose their disruptors up front. They ranked 23rd in front 7 havoc last year. That's going to take a step back. They do still have the 3-3-5 scheme, which does confuse people. That's kind of why I see it being lower scoring. I see how it being a little confused while still kind of getting there, still kind of moving the chains, but maybe not necessarily hitting a ton of explosives, because they're really good at bottling up explosive plays. And then the secondary returns 6 of their top 7 players. I think it's going to switch from the front 7 being their strength to now the secondary being the strength. Of course, they don't have Baskerville or McMorris anymore, losing a few transfers out. I do still have some questions on how they're going to transition with the new coaching staff. Is the defense still going to continue to be elite? be elite. I don't know, but long story short, what I'm trying to say is Ohio did struggle in their tougher matchups last year. They didn't have a lot of tough matchups. They destroyed weaker competition, struggling against tough matchups. So that's my way of saying it. At the end of the day, Rourke is he's extremely mispriced. He's a little bit more pass first than his brother, a lot more pass first than his brother, but he can still run a little bit. Cy Bangura at 7.2K, you can play Cy Bangura. I think what it boils down to is whether you're going to pay for Bangura or whether you're going to pay for his teammate, his wideout, my boy Sammy Wiggles. He's an elite asset. He's like fourth, fifth, maybe sixth round if you're doing redrafts. And there's not a lot of guys worth paying up for. Sammy Wiggles is an absolute baller. I think a lot of people too might click through and see his game log and be like, dang, it's got a bunch of single digit games here. You know, you got those lazy people setting lineups. That was when Rourke got hurt. He was a baller. You scroll down to when Rourke's playing. It's just he's absolutely crushing it for the most part, but he's a little bit more boomer bust. I could see maybe you don't have to play him in cash. Of course, you don't have to play him in tournaments either. I think if you want to in tournaments, get a leverage play if you're interested in. Jacoby Jones is their wide receiver too, and this guy is electric, man. I think he does have actually not even a terrible floor for the most part too. Again, I don't want to play a ton of guys in this game. I think I want to play two max. So if I'm playing Bangura, maybe I'm not playing anyone else. Maybe I play Bangura and Rourke. Bangura does catch a few passes that could work. But overall, I don't see this being a super high-scoring game. I could be wrong in that because I could be wrong. Ohio's an offensive first team. Maybe their defense can't hang with San Diego State's offense. But I see it just kind of being it's kind of a black game. But anyway, Jones, this guy has elite metrics. He's a big play threat. He can bust one. I can see him being a tournament play. For me, I'm not really trying to do a ton. And I'm not interested in a Miles Cross at 5.6K. I don't like the price enough, but there's always a chance with a stud like Rourke as your quarterback, he could pay off. All right, San Diego State is not a team I'm super interested in on this slate, to be honest with you. You can make a case for all three positions. I'll just say their offense wasn't good last year, man. They were 92nd in EPA per play, 105th in success rate. They get Ryan Lindley in as the new offensive coordinator. He's a Utah disciple. Andy Ludwig disciple, studying him under Utah. Of course, played quarterback at San Diego State too. They're going to run the ball a lot. They're going to play a ton of 12 personnel, maybe even 13 personnel. Going to see a lot of tight ends on the field. That's why I do think Mark Redmond is underpriced. I don't necessarily know if you have to pay all the way down here this year, but if you do, I think Mark Redmond, he was plus 250 anytime touchdown score on FanDuel. I like that. Plus 600 first touchdown. I could see him doing that. In DFS, again, like there's not many pay up options. I don't think you have to pay down 3.5K, but he's okay in that range. Jalen Mayden at 5.9K, I could make a case for him. The way I see this playing out, the game script playing out, I'm not totally interested, but he is a little bit of a rusher. He could rush for a touchdown or two. Ohio State's defense was not elite last year, 92nd in EPA per play. They did finish the year really strong. Over the first 6 games, they were torched, 561 yards per game. They really tightened up over the last 7 games, 351 yards per game. So they totally flipped that on the head, right? That's 210 yards less per game. So clearly something switched, but at the same time, I will point out, you lose 2 D-line starters, and those good stats were against MAC teams. MAC ain't no good, man. And San Diego State, like that's a solid. I know they only finished 7-6, but for the most part they've been solid. I know it's a down year offensively, but you get a Utah disciple trying to fix that bad offensive line. I could make a case for Mayden. I just don't necessarily see it happening here in week 0, especially with the reports that the offense was really struggling in camp all the way through fall. There were reports Mayden throwing like 4 picks on one of their scrimmages. He did have a much better second scrimmage, but I don't know. And then one of his main wide receivers, a transfer, I believe from Western Carolina, FCS transfer, Raphael Williams. I thought he could be the team's leading receiver. They're badly hurting at receiver. They lose their top 2 from a year ago, and it sounds like he may not be eligible. They're still waiting. It's game week. The game's the game's in a day or two, and they don't know if my guy's playing. So overall, I don't see this necessarily being the spot, but it could happen. I also, again, the offensive line improvement. They used to be a team that ran the heck out of the ball. They couldn't run it all last year, 118th in rushing success rate. And now your offensive line that stunk last year, 125th in stuff rate. You lose 2 of your best players, including a first-teamer at center. They only returned 53 starts. I don't know if I see it, man. Running backs, I think Kristen's RB1. I think some people are reading the tea leaves wrong. Their depth chart's crazy. They listed, like, go look at it, man. There's like 16 dudes listed as starters. That's not possible. I think they just want to keep everyone happy, okay, so they don't transfer. But they anyway. So I think people are overreacting a little bit. They said Cam Davis had a good camp, so they listed as a starter at one of the RB spots. But every single report I read from spring through fall, Keenan Kristen established himself as the RB1. This guy does have home run ability. He's one of the fastest players in college football. That's not an exaggeration. He was at USC before he was here. This guy's metrics are hilarious because he had like the highest breakaway percentage in all of college football. He was top 3, and then broken tackle percentage, he was like bottom 3. The dude cannot break a tackle, right? So he's pretty hilarious. So he could break a long one. I could see that, but not really a dude I love playing. I think there are better options. Jalen Armstead's also an explosive player. I think will be on the field. But yeah, I think I talked enough about that game. All right, Hawaii football, baby, is back. Plus 17.5 to Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt football is back too. These teams played last year in week 0, and it was a very easy money-making opportunity. I don't know if it's as easy this year. I definitely don't think it's as easy this year. I remember they had Mike Wright, Hawaii quarterback, his props last year were a joke. It was so easy. What was it on PrizePicks? I'll look it up. I think it's in my banner on Twitter, but they said his rushing yardage at something ridiculous, like in the 20s or 30s, and my dude ran for well over 100 yards. Just totally crushed it, and it was great in DFS as well. So, anyway, Hawaii was a joke last year, but this year they're forecasting improvement. I could see why. It was a year 0. It was a clear year 0 rebuilding year for Timmy Chang. Todd Graham left this program in shambles, the roster in shambles. I was hearing more about his court cases and all this crap than I was hearing about the players. They lost everybody through the transfer portal. I think it's an understandable bad year, and they showed some signs of life. So I'm a little split. A lot of people are forecasting Hawaii to be a lot better this year. A lot of people are buying in. I do think they're going to have to be better. You have to be when you start at bottom. At the same time, I don't know if the rebuild's over. They were really bad on both sides of the football. 117th EPA per play on offense, 118th EPA per play on defense. I don't know if I saw enough encouraging signs. I don't know necessarily how good the quarterback is, or the skill position players, the wide receivers mainly, and I don't know if the defense is any good. So I don't know. What I do know, this game is interested from a fantasy perspective. Total's up to 56. Looks like that one keeps climbing, and I think it can go over 56. I think both teams should be able to score here a little bit. Vanderbilt, defensively, they have a few starting D linemen banged up, backup linebackers banged up, and they had a starting quarterback who was banged up to start fall camp. I'm not sure if he's back at 100%. I believe he was playing in the scrimmage, but health's a concern. And Vanderbilt's defense, Duke Clark-Lee is supposed to be a defensive-minded head coach, and they finished 125th in EPA per play last year, return 8 on that side of the ball. Here's the 2 big talking points here, okay? Hawaii's transitioning to the run and shoot offense. Why they didn't run that last year, I don't know. They have the same coaching staff. That's weird. You wouldn't do it. They like said they did after the first 4 games. I don't really think the staff knows what they're doing. So it's hard to give them a complete pass when that's just not something you see. They didn't have an offensive system. What, you don't have an offensive system? I don't care how bad the roster is. Just have a system. So that's weird to me. But there's been enough puff pieces about them running the run and shoot this year. I believe it will be a truer version of that. I believe there will be more passing. And that brings me to my second talking point, is that Vanderbilt has a clear strength defensively. That's up front. That's stopping the run. 25th in EPA per rush last year. And a clear weakness, the secondary. They're a pass funnel team. 130th EPA per pass. 125th in passing success rate. So I think Hawaii could throw the ball here. That doesn't mean I'm interested in Braden Shager, but I am interested in his props. I'll talk more about that later. That means one of the wide receivers probably will pop off, and I'm not going to bring anything super interesting to the table here about Hawaii's receivers. Nobody knew who was going to start all offseason. All your favorite analysts probably all got it wrong for the most part, including me. I got a few spots wrong because I don't know if any of these guys are any good. That's why we don't have a good read on who's going to start and who's going to be a stud, because no one's shown us anything, for Christ's sakes. I have to shout him out before I forget him. They have a New Zealand champion sprinter on their team. So hopefully at some point we get to see this guy. Eddie Osei Nkita might be the fastest man in college football, and he's like mid-20s, but he's never played football before. So hopefully we get to see him at some point. Look for that. Cheer for that. Other than that, the starting receivers, man, Pinnock is my pick right now to be wide receiver 1. I know in the run and shoot, you like the guys on the outside. I believe Pinnock's playing, or sorry, on the inside in the slot. I believe Pinocchio was listed at outside. I don't know how true they're going to stick to that. Stephen McBride, Kansas transfer. Right now, I think his price might be the best, actually, at 3.7. That's really cheap. He's going to start. Looks all right. He didn't play much at Kansas, but he looks all right to me. You look at the clips. I could see him doing that. Walt Hall balled out as a true freshman. I don't say balled out. Nobody balled out on Hawaii. They just balled their eyes out on the sideline, man, because they were getting their butts beat pretty good. Grant Morgan at tight end. The one people are going to flock to is Pofili Ashlock. Never heard his name in my life. No one ever heard this name. And all of a sudden, he's a starting slot receiver at 6'2", redshirt freshman. So could be Pofili, man, if you want to pay up or pay down all the way at the bargain. I could see it. That makes some sense in tournaments. I don't really see why not. Again, if they had a clear wide receiver one, I'd go for it. But overall, I guess Pinocchio, McBride, Pofili is where I look. Their running back, Tylan Hines, this is not a good matchup. A lot of people think it is, so I feel pretty good about that handicap. Vandy's way better up front. On the other hand, if they're injured up front, and Tylan Hines should be priced at 6.7K, somewhere in the 7Ks. This is a really bad mispricing. Hawaii was good at running the ball last year, 19th in rushing success rate. It came out of nowhere for a lot of folks. Their offensive line was amazing, 10th in stuff rate. This was arguably a top 10 offensive line. They lose 4 of their top 6 offensive linemen and return only 43 starts. I don't think they're going to be as good rushing the ball at all. So that makes me nervous on Tylan Hines, but his price is such that I think he could probably still play him a decent amount. He's extremely explosive. He ran for over 600 yards as a true freshman on just 83 attempts. Guy's a decent receiver as well. And now with Dedrick Parson gone, he's going to be the clear RB1. Smallish dude going against an SEC team, but is it really an SEC team? Hines is still my favorite Hawaii play for sure. All right, Vanderbilt side of the football. I think they should be able to beat this Hawaii defense. This Hawaii defense wasn't good last year. Vanderbilt playing at home. I like their passing attack this year, so A.J. Swann's going to be the full-time starter, former 4-star, and they return their top 3 wide receivers, and I think they should just kind of be able to cook here. Swann, the price is ridiculous. Nothing but an extreme leverage play, pass-only quarterback. The wide receivers, I think Will Shepard's the top price-adjusted play on the slate, arguably at any position. I guess maybe Rourke could dispute that, but I think Shepard is, because wide receiver is really hard not to play him. I think he has a very safe floor, decent ceiling. I think he's the best player on Vanderbilt's team and just should be able to cook. I like his props as well, over 48.5 receiving yards. You play the fantasy points on PrizePicks, underdog, whatever. Quincy Skinner, I think, is going to be their wide receiver too. Yeah, they flipped the wide receiver pricing. They don't know what they're doing. They flipped the wide receivers. Shepard should be their most expensive. Skinner, in my opinion, should be second, and McGowan third. McGowan's a fast slot guy. Started as a freshman last year, but he's a little boomer bust. I guess if you want extreme leverage, do it. But otherwise, no. I think Skinner could have a better year. He wasn't really healthy last year. Reports were that he was the clear wide receiver too in fall camp, and that he looked almost as good as Shepard. And Shepard's the best player on the team, so wouldn't be surprised if Skinner breaks a few big ones as well. I'm not interested in the Vandy rushing attack. Well, I kind of am, because they're decently cheap, but it's going to be a complete rotation. Offensive line hasn't shown they're going to be great. I know it's a cake matchup. Maybe these guys go for a touchdown, but if you're splitting carries 3 ways, arguably 4 ways, Patrick Smith's listed as a starter, but this dude had about 2.9 yards per carry last year. It was below 3 yards per carry. Not good. Gillespie had better numbers, but he hardly played. Those were all kind of in garbage time for the most part, you know. Cedric Alexander's the true freshman. I wouldn't be surprised if he's the most talented player in this room, and at 3.7K, that's a decent price. I actually think I could see playing him in some lineups. AJ Newberry is another freshman that could play at Stone Cold 3 min, but as of right now, we think it's going to be those top 3 that are rotating pretty evenly. So I think Alexander's the most viable here. All right, y'all. 2 more. San Jose State versus USC. USC right now, 30.5 point favorite. Looks like that one is dropping a little bit. Should be a blowout, right? Shouldn't be very interesting, I guess. You never know with USC's defense. But to me, you could look at this 2 ways with the San Jose State players. They're probably going to get blown out. Their best skill position player might be injured. Might not play. Maybe does. The offensive line was terrible a year ago, allowed 42 sacks, and they're playing against a USC team that has 5, 6, 7 impact transfer players up front defensively that they've been talking about. Riley's been talking about, to the point where he probably wants to make a statement in this, and he probably has an opportunity to make a statement in this game. On the flip side, I don't think I said a single positive thing about USC's defense all year last year. And they were really bad. So now we're just assuming they're going to be good. They're going to be better. They absolutely will be better. They were terrible last year, 126 in success rate. They have to be better. The transfers are good. Last year they completely remade the roster through the portal, and most of that was on offense. This year they did the same thing, but it was on defense for the most part. So they're going to be better. I don't really think they're going to be good. I don't trust Alex Grinch, but this is not a bad matchup. San Jose State's offense wasn't anything special last year. I could see them possibly taking a step back this year. I know the offensive line returns 8 guys, but they were terrible. How do you allow 42 sacks last year? That's really bad. So anyway, that means I have no interest in the rushing attack. I think some people are going to play Kyrie Robinson. It's kind of an easy fade for me. He's going to be touchdown dependent. He could get a touchdown, but I mean, just pay up for the other guys. And on the other hand, I think Quali Conley could become the RB1 on this team. Transfers in as a 1,000-yard guy from the SES level and has gotten pretty good reviews in camp. He's at least going to be the 1B or clear RB2, which they didn't have last year. So that means less work for Kyrie Robinson, in my opinion. And yeah, but I'm still not playing Conley. I guess I could see him having a decent game. The passing attack, you can play Cordero. Cordero's one of those guys that I can't really make a good case for or against, which means I'm fine with him either way. He's 6.3K. He is too cheap. I don't really understand why San Jose State has the lowest implied team total on the slate at 16.5. That doesn't really make sense to me. Again, USC had a bottom 5 defense in the country last year, like including crap teams like Florida International, who we'll talk about later. I get they're going to be better. I know they're going to be better. I firmly believe they're going to be better. I'm on record here with a microphone saying they're going to be better, but it's still weird. 16.5. I don't know. Cordero's a little bit of a runner. He could rush for a touchdown or two. They're probably going to be playing from behind. Whether or not it gets to the point where he gets benched, I still think that's a fair price. I think in tournaments only for sure. But he could make sense. And he's got cheap stacking options. Justin Lockhart would be my favorite player on their team at 4.8K. He's supposedly the heir apparent outside. He only got 1 touchdown a year ago, but he's supposedly the heir apparent wide receiver 1 in this offense. And he missed their last scrimmage with an arm injury. Now, it's been a little hard trying to read the tea leaves. They said he was in and out of practice that week, so maybe they just sat him for live reps as your go-to guy. You sit him for live reps before a game. That seems to make sense to me. So he's listed as a starter on the depth chart. Right now, I'm assuming Lockhart's going to play. But again, college football, it's really hard to get that information. There's a chance to put him in your lineup, he doesn't play, and that really hurts. On the other hand, could drive down his ownership when he should be priced at 6.8K and he's 4.8K. So Lockhart's fine. I think they're going to run the offense through the tight ends a lot. They really like their tight ends. They have 2 good ones, Dominic Mazzotti and then Sam Olsen. Are listed as the top 2. Mazzotti's at 4.7K. Olsen's at 3.1K. There have been a ton of reports of Sam Olsen balling out in fall, and I believe that. I think there's a reason they're listed as co-stars on the depth chart. Olsen's been hurt for the majority of the last 2 years, but man, I remember the opening game 2 years ago, caught like a 60-yard touchdown. Olsen's a burner, man. That guy can move, and they're making a point of getting him the ball. So if you have visions of Thomas Yasmin, and other tight ends, and Dalton Kincaid going nuclear against this USC defense, tight ends can beat this Alex Grinch defense, and they have 2 good ones. So I'm fine with either one of those guys. The other 2 receivers, Cameron Ross at 4.6K, and then Nick Nash converted quarterback. Brother drives Uber as well. If you're getting an Uber to San Jose State game, might get his brother. I'm not interested there. All right, USC. Where to begin? Okay, the Heisman winners at quarterback. He's 9.9K. I guess you could fade him if you want some crazy leverage, but I just think he's a pretty easy plug and play, especially in cash. Just don't really overthink it. There's not much to say. Stacking him is a little tough. I don't like when USC's on the slate because they kind of rotate their wide receivers. You never really know which one's going to pop off. There's a lot more luck involved. Like to eliminate luck and get the biggest edge you can. I usually don't like to play a ton of lineups, but when USC's in there, you're just going to have to, man. You just kind of have to. So, anyway, they have Dorian Singer, Arizona transfer, listed as the starter on the depth chart, and I think he is their wide receiver 1. I think he's priced up accordingly. You can pay up if you want to. Hard for me to do, but I think it's viable for sure. I think the pricing is not too far off, to be honest with you. Other than that, Kyron Hudson, they listed as a starter in the depth chart. I'm not really concerned. They listed him with an or with Brendan Rice. I think Brendan Rice probably gets more looks. Probably gets more looks. He's a boomer bust guy. He's a tournament guy. You could easily see popping off on the outside here. Outside receiver guy. But I'm not a huge fan of Brendan Rice. The guy has really, really bad drop issues, and sounds like he was still dropping a lot of passes. So maybe that's why he's listed with the or on the depth chart. They listed Kyron Hudson first for what it's worth, and if this game's a blowout, maybe they reward Kyron Hudson for not dropping every other pass in practice. Okay. Other than that, the slot position is really crowded. Really crowded. Mario Williams should be the starter there, but he wasn't practicing much for the last couple weeks, and allegedly he's back at 100% is what his note says there if I open it up. But that's as of Wednesday before game week, and they got guys they can rotate anyway, so I think Mario Williams is a fade because I don't think he's healthy, and they got some really talented other guys to mix in there. Taj Washington as well was not healthy in camp. That makes me want to avoid him. Also returned to practice, probably will play, right? But there's no reason for them to play him a ton. So these guys are also explosive. They could catch a long touchdown pass, but like the usage forecasting that is just not possible. The projections not easy and not very favorable. I could see actually playing Zach Branch. He's listed as third in the slot on the depth chart, but Zach Branch is a 5-star. This guy is amazingly electric. Like, they call a lot of players electric and game breakers when they go to college, but like few embody it like Branch does. This guy's amazing. He's probably going to break a long touchdown or get a kick or punt return touchdown if he sees it. And the same could be said about Raleek Brown. At 4.3K, he transitioned mostly from running back to slot wide receiver. I think some people are reading this wrong if they think he's only going to play in the slot. Like, he's going to kind of be a back that moves all over a little bit. So some people are being a little bit dumb in their analysis, but at the end of the day, there's no usage you can forecast for Raleek Brown. He's similar to Branch, just Branch is on another level. The difference is Brown has another year in the system, and he could also rush for a touchdown. So Branch could get more touches than, Brown could get more touches than Branch. So I could see playing either one. Oh, I forgot to talk about the running back room. That one's important. They have 2 starters, and I think it's neck and neck. Austin Jones and Marshawn Lloyd probably split workload to start the season is what I would imagine. I am definitely in the Marshawn Lloyd camp. Whether that means I'm definitely in his corner for this game is a little bit of a different story. My take on it is this. Austin Jones has experience in the system, but is clearly just a guy. He's a jag at this point, in my opinion. Nothing special. Whereas Marshawn Lloyd is a former 5-star who has only not shown out because he's been injured, and he played for South Carolina last year and wasn't injured for the start of the season and was like a 20-point fantasy point per game guy. You say, well, no, he was at 18 fantasy points, but look at the game log up until he got hurt, where he got those 2 games with 3 points. This guy was a stud. He's a good receiver. He is more of a game breaker, more athletic. I think it's pretty obvious Marshawn Lloyd's the better football player. Now, that does not mean he forecasts better in this spot, because this could be a blowout. Jones is more dependable. They probably get a similar workload to start the season. So I can see playing either one, is my long story short, but it is hard for me to get away from Lloyd when he's cheaper and better. And I think a better pass catcher, but they both can catch passes. I'm not playing the other guys behind them. It could be a blowout, but they're priced up, in my opinion. All right, guys, we're almost there. Last one. Florida International is plus 11.5. Going against Louisiana Tech. Over-unders at 58.5. So this one could be decent fantasy-wise. And I think it's somewhat easy to read. I suppose I have to talk about Florida International offensively, but I just don't think they're going to be very good. They only returned 5 starters. They do have the quarterback back. They're kind of fast offensively. They lost their running back to an ACL injury, Lexington Joseph. In the spring, they lost their best defensive lineman in the spring. O-line only has 41 starts, and they got a new coach, so they're probably still going to be bad after being 113th in line yards. I just don't think anything's interesting here. Grayson James is a weird quarterback in that he randomly will go off for 30 points. He did it against Louisiana Tech last year, for example, but I don't see that happening here. I don't see how you can forecast it, so not interested there. The running back room. The thing with Louisiana Tech's defense is they have a ton of transfers, so we don't know how they're going to look. They were embarrassing last year, 124th in explosiveness, and they have a clear roster deficiency in that their D linemen are tiny and like they don't have any big boys up front. But I don't trust FIU to exploit that, so no thank you. I think the top two wide receivers are Mitchell, who's more of an outside touchdown guy, and then Bracey, who's more of a speed slot guy. I think Bracey's better in cash. I could see Mitchell in tournaments. Honestly, I guess I'd probably just pay down for Bracey, probably in either format. All right, that brings us to the last team we're going to talk about here, Louisiana Tech. Sonny Cumbie came in. Here's what I think about Sonny Cumbie. He's an air raid coach. So from that tree of coaches, I view him as, I have a lower opinion of him. Let me say that's a lower opinion of him than almost all the other coaches in that tree, in that camp. I just don't think he's a fantastic offensive mind. But he throws the ball a lot, and he runs a lot of plays, and he runs fast. And that's just good for fantasy. It may not be as good in real life. They were 94th in EPA per play last year, but they were 7th in explosiveness. They had some big plays. One of the reasons they were that big in explosiveness is because they had a wide receiver who, as a true freshman, was 2nd in the entire country in yards per catch at 22.7. That's Cyrus Allen. Had 500 yards as a true freshman. One of only, I believe, 6 true freshmen to do that. And Sonny Cumbie's outside wide receivers could be interesting in that scheme. And now looks to be the clear guy out there with Trey Harris transferring to Ole Miss and looking pretty good in their scrimmages lately. So Cyrus Allen, tournament play only probably. Yeah, tournament play only at 5.7K, but he probably hits a big one here against an FIU defense that was not good at all last year. And then not really good at anything. 112th in EPA per pass, 127th in passing down EPI. So you get him in passing downs, you throw the ball over top to Allen, boom, touchdown. Smoke Harris is 6.6. He's also probably going to have a nice productive year for the 3rd straight year, but he's more of a slot guy. A little bit, I mean, he's good with the ball in his hands, but just a little bit less explosive, and he's more expensive. So I don't really see a reason to get there. I think the passing guy probably has a good day. Hank Bachmeier, transfers in from Boise State. I just think everything I said about Cumbie and the scheme and the fact that he's pretty much a pass-first, pass-only quarterback who will probably get negative rushing yards in this game. It's hard for me to get to Bachmeier. I think with some of the, like even if he does outscore Rourke, which I think is possible, him outscoring the rushing quarterbacks, it's hard for me to believe Bachmeier's going to be in the winning lineup. But there's a path, especially if Allen goes off. I could see that. I think if you play him, you have to stack him with Allen and maybe Harris too, because crazier things have happened. I mean, this is not a tough matchup whatsoever. The other La Tech guy, I'm targeting. The rest of the running back room is hurt. So Charvis Thornton, who was the RB2 last year, is the next guy up. He's at 5.4K, and they're a double-digit favorite playing against a team that lost their best defensive lineman in the transfer portal and was almost negative 180 yards in Conference USA play last season. That's really bad. This is a Conference USA game. So, I don't know. I don't know if I'm trying to choose between Thornton and Allen, which one I prefer more on this team. I guess Thornton in cash games or similar single entries, and Allen in tournaments. But I think you could play both, and I think you could play both in either lineup. Year 2 in the Cumbie system, regardless of what I think of Cumbie. Really easy matchup, a lot of plays, and they have some talent. So wouldn't be surprised with a big outing, big day at the office. Okay, that wraps up the slate. I think I kind of hit on everything. I went kind of long. It's been a while since I've done this, so I guess I have a lot to say. I'm not going to go over all my PrizePicks plays here. Sam Hartman, I think they should cook this Navy secondary. Navy secondary stinks, and the defensive line was pretty good, and they returned everybody. They were really good at stopping the run, so that keeps me off Estime personally. You could go over that, but I like Hartman in the passing attack. He was on underdog as well for touchdown passes at 2, and it looks like they just added it to PrizePicks as well. So I like Sam Hartman. I don't know if I like 19.5 or the 2 better. I think the 2, I would be like amazingly shocked if he doesn't at least find a push. Pavia's rush yards looks good. He hit this repeatedly to end last year. He was splitting time early on in the season, so his game log might not show it. I think that average is off, dude. He almost always hit that when he was the full-time starter last year. And I'm not really scared of UMass's defense at all, really. Oh, they've had some new ads since I looked at this before the video. Tyron Smith, wide receiver 1. I think he probably goes over that. Just an amazing wide receiver. Jacksonville State's defense is not scary, so that looks decently good to me. Shepard, I could see the overs hitting, like I mentioned earlier, whether you want to take receiving yards or fantasy points. I think either one's pretty good. Cyrus Allen props don't look too bad. I think I prefer his receiving yards because, again, he's a big play guy, so maybe he won't get that many catches, but touchdowns and long plays are there for Cyrus Allen of Louisiana Tech. And passing yards, I just like that Hawaii Vanderbilt matchup. I don't see why they shouldn't go back and forth throwing the ball there. So anyway, that's where I'm looking at PrizePicks. If you want my whole PrizePicks plays, go ahead and check them out over at DevyWatch. I've already written them up, already posted them this morning, and I will continue adding to that as plays get added. I would say don't get like too crazy. It's week 0. I know everyone's chomping at the bit. We've been wandering in the desert, and this is a bit of a mirage. So it's a small slate. The offerings are okay, but there'll be better offerings next week, I'm sure. So because you do want to attack early on in the year, but just be honest, there's only so many games. You don't need to force too many. So other than that, give me a look. It's at YonkerCFB on Twitter. Thanks so much for watching. If you stay tuned this long for college football content, you're a diehard like me. So thank you for watching. I can't wait. College football is back. Please subscribe to the channel and check back next week. Thank you, guys.